Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I have Thursday night Major General Prabdeep Singh. I wanted to ask sir one question. We had a discussion some time ago about Europe, and we had a different style of a discussion. Today, I want to ask a military mind on what he thinks is happening in Europe, because that Europe may whatever is happening is going to transpose into a various different areas, and it will change geopolitics quite a bit. So tonight, let's talk open-ended geopolitics and let's find out what's happening in the world. Sir, good evening, namaskar, and Jai Hind.
Good evening, Namaskar, Jai Hind. Good to be back again and taking on a different line today. We're going to be talking Europe. And now, firstly, what has provoked us talking about Europe? That is a question that we must ask ourselves. Uh, a, we've had Eastern Europe, you know, uh, the Ukraine war haven't taken place. It's going to be 2 years in Feb, and we're just 2 months short, 3 months short of 2 years. And as we have heard, Ukraine is going to get prolonged beyond 2024 elections and beyond, as has already been stated by the president of Russia. So that's one. Second is the Middle East, which has been a fallout, I would say, of the Ukraine war. Now, you would say, ask me, sir, as to how is it that it's a fallout of the Ukraine war. Uh, Ukraine war has been a testing ground for the West. Now that we've seen that the West has not been able to cow down Russia, and Russia continues to prevail. So, in my opinion, Israel is also the whatever has happened in Israel with the Palestinians is a fallout of this particular aspect. That is the testing part of it. Having tested the West in Europe, in Ukraine, we have found ourselves in such a big turmoil, a mess, which is there in Middle East. What has been the outcome of that? The outcome of whatever is happening in Middle East has had repercussions all over the world, especially so in Europe. We've seen mass protests, pro Hamas, pro Palestinian protests, I mean, in each and every country in Europe. We saw European Union. I mean, when you try and fix things, you got to consider the European Union. You got to consider the Europe as such. You got to consider what's happening in Ukraine. You got to consider what's happening in Middle East, and you also got to consider what's happening in Africa. Now, why I say Africa is, after all, the entire most of the immigration which is coming by sea and by land at times is, the northern African route is also being taken by the sea, and we've seen large number of people trying to cross over the seas and get into mainland Europe. Now, whether legal, illegal, whatever it is, the fact is they're immigrants. They have been pouring into the entire continent. Interestingly, if you ask me, how many countries are there in Europe? That's also a big question mark. When you try and classify Europe, there is a classification of Europe which ranges from 44 countries, 46 countries to 51 countries. So this
51.
itself is something which is interesting. So broadly, if you just want to consider, we're looking at from the Atlantic Sea to the Black Sea is what we look at, composing the countries which are there as part of Europe. There are certain countries which have not been recognized, and there are certain countries which are considered, though Russian, ex-Soviet Union, but now part of uh, Europe. So that's a bigger term. How many countries are there in the EU? That's the next question. There are
27.
about 27 countries in EU. That's about it. Yeah. Now, we got to consider the very fact that we had Brexit. So I'm just trying to put things in place. I'm just trying to put you had Britain, UK moving out of the European Union. That was the Brexit part of it. And today we had Netherlands. We've had the Dutch going to polls, and we have had the new
Gerrit Wilders.
elected. Yes, the Wilders. Now his name suggests he's pretty wild and he's far right. Absolutely, absolutely right wing. So when you look at him, he's talking of a Nexit. There's Brexit, and now he's also talking of Nexit. So I'm just wanting to qualify that there is quite a bit of dissension. There is quite a bit of mistrust. There's quite a bit of antagonistic feeling towards many issues.
Hmm. Okay, sorry about that. I think.
Now, what are the issues which are prevailing in Europe? We're talking, you must have lost me a little bit, but we're talking economy. The economy of Europe is in doldrums. We know that. We know that the European Union per se has no military might other than the fact that it's NATO exists, and
NATO.
NATO has been supported solely by the United States. Then you have, as we referred to earlier, the immigration problem. Now, immigrations are adding to the strain on European soil. And then you have, because of this, you have xenophobia, and you also have a lot of Islamophobia, which is existing in Europe. So when you look at all this, uh, you have the right wing or the far right emerging. Now, why is the far right emerging in Europe? Obviously, when you have so much of immigration taking place, you have a collective term, European, just to quote unquote, is European. When you look at would you want to be called a European, or you want to be called a Swede or a Finn, or you want to be called an Italian? Now, so there is a conflict between nationalism and Europeanism. So this
Hmm.
is something has which is fueling this far rightism. So when you look at all this, there are people who become more nationalists, and then there's a new term which is something called political entrepreneurship or political entrepreneurs. Now, these political entrepreneurs are the ones who are far right, and they're making a case for their countries to become more and more nationalist and less European.
Hmm.
Now, this is what this kind of a movement which has come about has also led to a lot of white supremists, many groups which are operating, which are armed,
Neo-Nazi and
have
yeah.
an agenda, which have an agenda, an anti a xenophobic agenda, anti Islam agenda, and these are the people who have been quite a number of groups. If I may just recollect the groups, uh, there are a number of groups in various countries. I'll just list them out because it's quite interesting. Okay, I written them down somewhere. Yeah, in UK you have a group called Order of Nine Angles, O9 Alpha. Now this is a group. Then they want the expulsion of non-whites from the United Kingdom. I'm
Wow.
talking about the far right groups. Then, of course, you have the opposition party, that party which is called, which is there, the United Kingdom Independent Party, that also opposes uh, that is the one party which called for Brexit. Then in France, you have something called the operational force action. Then you have Combat 18. I'm just listing out a few. Then you have an
These don't sound.
organization, Army Secret. This is a
These
French.
don't sound.
In
These
German,
don't sound very nice,
yeah,
sir.
they don't sound nice. In Germany, you have uh, Querdenken movement. Then you have the Reichsbürger movement. In
Oh,
Belgium, you have the New Flemish Alliance, Shield and Friends, and White Collars, and all that. So I'm just listing out a few. Now, some of them have been banned by the countries, but the fact remains that these far right groups, which are armed, they're white supremacists, they today they're gaining ground. The point is that now, if you look at all the protests which have taken place on European soil, I think I can list out any country. In every country, there have been protests, pro-Palestinian, uh, anti-Israel protests which have taken place. Hundreds and thousands of people have come down to the streets.
okay. I think
While
we'll.
France had banned all this gas, he had banned, yeah, he had banned all these groupings, all these protests taking
Hmm.
place. However, he had to take it back, and then it was made, that it was the discretion of the city in which uh, this protest was to be called. So the point here is, while the people are anti all these protests, what is coming out is a solidarity movement against the ruling elite, or whatever you want to call it, the ruling party. So every country is getting some sort of an opposition, and it is coming to fore because these protests have also gone violent in many places. These have not been
Yeah.
peaceful protests. No nation worth its own salt will want any other countries or any other movements' flags to be paraded around in their territory. The fact remains, even though you may be an immigrant, if you're living in a particular country, you've taken citizenship of a particular country, then you got to honor the code and conduct, and the and conduct yourself as a responsible citizen of that particular nation. So these kind of contradictions are coming about on European soil. What are the differences? What are the major differences between the government and the right wings? Interestingly, one of the major differences, anti-United States. These which is standing out is that there is the United States has been promoting multicultural, aspects. Multipolarity is what they believe in, but in this case, they are talking about multiculturalism. Uh, they they are breeding uh, the Europeans, the far rights. They feel that the Americans are asserting themselves far too much than what is required on their respective countries. Now, uh, let's take, if more and more countries are going to become far right. We are already aware of Hungary.
What happens in Europe also?
Yeah, and I'm just saying, Viktor Orban, the fourth time comes about today, is voicing his opinions against EU. Suddenly, you now with the recent elections in Netherlands, you have another. Mr. Wilders is going to be another party to anti-EU. So what I'm trying is to say is, even the Italian Prime Minister, as you said, she too is far right, and slowly and slowly it is gathering momentum, wherein uh, the countries are going against the European Union. Now, if the countries are going to go against the European Union, the very essence of Europe is actually,
Finished.
you know, is dwindling. I wouldn't say finished at the moment, but I would say it's, on one hand, European Union wanted to become more stronger. They wanted their own defense forces, and wanted to be a viable conglomeration of nations. But on the other hand, what is happening is, as a result of the Ukraine war, and now as a result of the consequent of what's happening in the Middle East, we find that the European Union too is kind of on shaky grounds. So if you have Brexit, and then we already had Brexit, and now you have Nexit, there's going to be a little bit of problem. Now those far right countries, uh, or the right wing political parties which are there in power, one of the agendas is bringing about their nationalism. Even Mr. Wilders, in his manifesto, and he has declared that he would want Netherlands to be free of all Muslims. He wants to ban the Quran, and he wants the immigration to come down to net zero. So there are going to be internal clashes. If you look at the religion angle, the religious angle, you will find that there will be a clash between uh, the Christians and the Islam Muslims. So if such kind of a clashes start taking place, and as it is, there are a lot of clashes which take place on a daily basis all over Europe. But if these and the Israel and the Palestinian issue, the number of attacks have significantly increased. So the law and order situation is also kind of going bad. So you have the economy going bad. You have the armed forces as it is under strain because of lack of, I mean, whatever they had has gone towards Ukraine, and now the social fabric is also being kind of uh, getting torn. So what do we have? I think Europe is headed for a little bit of a chaotic situation. They need to really pull up their socks. The EU needs to redefine itself and redefine its agendas, and take start taking things a little more seriously, because they thought open borders was a good idea. While it is a good idea for economy, all the for trade, and it also brings in a lot of pressure on various countries. So, so that's my take on it. Things are not going to be so easy, not going to be so rosy for Europe. Yeah.
Let's talk politics a little bit. So, I mean, you have these pro-Palestinian protests pretty much ripping through Europe right now, and these protests have actually gone from being pro-Palestinian to being anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas, uh, you know, and there is somewhere down the line a realization that, yeah, Europeans themselves are saying, what is this happening? Why is this happening? Why are they taking over our streets? What more worries me is actually an aggressive, violent sort of a pushback, because that is a bit,
You're right.
you know, it's a bit dangerous there. Now, and we know what happens in
No.
Europe when the violence starts. When these guys are crazy, very cultured and stuff like that, all the culture goes into the dustbin the minute the violence starts. So I fear a larger struggle sort of a thing, because we know in Belgium There are certain areas like Molenbeek and all that you can't walk. I mean, it sent the highest number of people into ISIS. Uh, so there is radicalization. There is polarization because of this war. So how do you think this whole thing is going to unfold itself going forward?
Yeah, when we talk about extreme violence or violent extremism, uh, the number of weapons which have come back from Ukraine, right? Now, this was something which we talked about earlier, that the number of weapons which are going into Europe, from Europe or from the United States into Ukraine, coming back into the hands of these radicals, whether white supremacists or whether Islamists, they were falling back into Europe. And we had already predicted it, and we talked about the fact that uh, Europe is going to face a large amount of, uh, I would say, violence trending towards terrorism. At the moment, I would put it at that. So if that kind of situation arrives and it is not curbed today, you will have groups. These are open borders in Europe, right? So uh, it's going to be very interesting, because the terrorists are going to be able to travel from one country to the other country without any check, without any checking, no national borders, no visas, nothing, no checks. I mean, we've all traveled in Europe, right? I mean, there are more checks in India going from one state to the other state than when you have from crossing, when you're traveling in Europe. So this terrorism is going to be transnational as far as Europe is concerned, and that's a cause of
Yeah.
worry. Weapons are moved. Weapons are in the hands of people, and as it is, their gun laws, of course, not so liberal as that as in the United States. So what do you have?
All
Armed
right.
groups. You have white supremacists and you have the Islamists clashing, and then you have the government trying to put a check on it, and that too they will also have to resort to some bit of armed kind of interference, because if the police gets in, if the armies get involved, then there's going to be mayhem as far as Europe is concerned. And I said they're going to be traveling freely, and certain countries, only very few countries like Poland and all, which do not permit and are not allowed any immigrant to come in, will survive. The rest of the countries are going to be in deep trouble. So it's high time that the European Union starts taking this very, very seriously. Actually, the European Union has been carrying out a large number of studies on it. A lot of research papers have already been written. The European Union is very much aware of these kind of underpinnings which exist. However, this is the first time that all this support, pro Hamas support or pro Palestinian support or anti government feelings have come out on the streets of Europe. Earlier, yes, they knew that there were certain groups, but now it's all in the open. And if tomorrow there is much looting and much terrorism, uh, terrorist actions which take place, well, it's going to be bad, is all I can say.
So I put out this term, a phrase, and it's kind of becoming my favorite because the minute I say this, a lot of things kind of fall into perspective. I call it the sino-wahabi leftist alliance. And if you look at it right now, the entire radicalization with regards to Palestine has been done by TikTok. That is well known. So that's where the Sino comes in. The Wahhabi, the whole thought process and this and that, and the leftist that aids it with this. I was listening to someone today, and he termed it very interestingly. He called it the CNN strategy. He said the CNN is the air force of Hamas, so it controls the airwaves for Hamas, and we are seeing this across the page. If you look at it, uh, the Chinese have been kind of involved in this with regards to propaganda. The whole the Palestine movement and the hardcore Islamism that we are seeing coming on the streets. We are seeing flags that I think 5 years back, if you would have seen, people would have been shot for it. But we are seeing them openly. And then we've got the leftists who I kind of believe is are in a shaky wicket, and they're kind of, you know, letting anything happen to gain that foothold back. How do you see this? I mean, it's not a battle of civilization, it's a battle of ideologies, if I may. And then there are people like us who are just wanting to live and be happy and, you know, not get involved with all this.
This was bound to happen. This was bound to happen because when there is a vacuum in a particular land, or and the land is, I mean, the economy is good, it's free, and people are nice, and everything is good. The government is in favor of immigration. A lot of people move in, and you want to you want to portray as a nation that you're a very people friendly nation, and etc etc. So a clash of civilizations would, or ideologies would, always take place after a certain point, and perhaps that
Hmm.
point has reached, has already arrived. You made the point of CNN being the air force of the Palestinians, whether it is
Hamas.
CNN or any of
Yeah, I
Hamas,
mean, CNN is just a
whether it
phrase.
is,
It's like the whole media.
yeah, I'm just saying, I'm also, colloquially, media by and large in in any country,
Uh, can we repeat from media, so you got cut off?
media is looking at TRP.
Hmm.
It's a bit, yeah. So as I said, in any country, the media is only looking for its own TRP, its own ratings. It's only looking at viewership. It is only looking at sensationalization of any action or any event which is taking place. So media is something which cannot be trusted, and all those who watch TV today, unfortunately, get swayed because the medium is so powerful. Coming on to whether it is Sino-Wahhabism, I'm sure you're aware that in the first week of December, somewhere on 7th of December, EU and China, there's going to be a major summit between China and the European Union. Now, this particular, I'm just trying to bridge the two together. And China has already given a warning to the European unions before the meeting, and have conveyed to the European Union that please clean up your mess and get your house in order, because a revolution is in sight.
Which we are making it
Now, that
happen.
this is a very interesting thing that they, yes. So they said that a revolution is happening within Europe. So it is high time that the European Union start looking inside. Indirectly, what they are doing is trying to put pressure on the EU before they come in for this particular meeting, because this meeting is going to be more of trade. It's going to be connected with trade. Also, China would want the EU, the entire of Europe, to be aligned to China rather than to the United States. So this particular meeting is based. The basis for this meeting is trade, but the indirect pressure is that China is a better friend than the United States. So be with us. If your economic condition is going to be bad, all these problems are going to arise. And if you're with us, the trade would be good. Your conditions, your all will be fine, and you shall prosper. And that kind of a thing is happening. So this subtle warning which has gone about, and pressure which has been put to say that a revolution is coming about, sums it all actually. If this
Hmm.
is happening courtesy us, if you're not behaving yourself, we'll put more pressure will on you. So start behaving, stop aligning yourself with the United States and align with us. Even before this war in Ukraine, a couple of years back, I'm talking maybe 2011, 12, there was a kind of a movement amongst the right wing or the far right. They were pushing for aligning their nations, their countries towards the Russian philosophy, towards Russia. They felt
Hmm.
that Russia was a better friend than the United States. Now, that somewhere in between got lost, and it never came to fore. However, this was happening. So you see China getting aligned, you see Russia, we know that Hungary and is already aligned, and now we've got going to be Netherlands, which is already aligned. Poland has its own kind of rules and regulations as far as, or ideology, as far as immigration is concerned, as far as dealing with the EU is concerned. So there is a lot of difference. So the Wahhabism, we've seen it on ground. The effect. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, sir.
Yeah,
Uh, there's the point is also the factor that it's not just happening in Europe. This whole shift to the right, we saw it in Argentina. We saw a shift to a center sort of a guy in Brazil after Jair Bolsonaro, who was crazy at one time. We see this happening in America. The guys wanting to get Trump back. I mean, it's good for them, not good for them. I don't know, but we see this happening there. Then, if you look at Asia also, a guy like Marcos comes in Philippines. You've got a nationalism sort of a structure which is going around the world. And so my last question to you is that is this anti-globalism which is actually happening rather than anything else, combined with the problem of radicalization which is taking place around the world, which is actually crazy. I mean, there's just no solution to that. But what do you think, sir?
yeah. You, what you're saying is, it is not anti-globalization. It, it is there's a term called hyper-globalization. Okay, so it is globalization gone beyond, and that is what is the cause of all these problems. That is the cause of all these populist, you know, regimes which are coming about. That is where the right wing is coming. You know, is coming to fore. Why? Globalization was good. Globalization was good for trade. Globalization is good for economy. But when it comes to cultural aspects, the moment culturally a nation starts going down and there is multiculturalism which is, steeping into society, that's where the nationalists come about. That is where the political entrepreneurs certainly come about and say, look, so far so good. We cannot let it go beyond a certain. limit. And that is what is coming to fore. So it's not anti-globalization. It's because of hyper-globalization that it has happened. Now, uh, the other aspect, what you look at Europe, especially in Europe, normally what happens in a nation is that policy is in the policy making and decision making is in the hands of the national elected governments, right?
Hmm.
Now, what has happened is in Europe is that the entire policy making aspect has gone away. It has been left to bureaucrats. The politicians are not taking part in policy making because the bureaucrats are dictating policy which is being dictated by the European Union, so to say. So the political parties are also losing, hold over policy making. Now, all this is what comes under this hyper globalization. So it is this aspect which is today turning the tide against the elected governments and the right wings coming to fore. Say enough is enough. Globalization was good, but this multiculturalism and is not going to be accepted beyond a certain point, and
Hmm.
where it is.
I think that is a
Yeah.
very critical point. Sir, there is also one factor, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to hitch in a small little one. We'll take another 1 minute. Uh, there's also the factor that, Europe also finds itself in a place that its importance in the world is kind of come down, right? And one of the biggest mistakes, I think, and you kind of hinted on this and just want to dwell a little further, is immigration, right? So, immigration and migration, let me just say that immigration is good. They want to plan their societies, they're a dying system, they want to kind of boost it up, that's fine. But this illegal migration which is actually happening and which is being allowed to happen in a lot of cases. I mean, there this whole concept of Mother Merkel, if you remember, Angela Merkel was called Mother Merkel at one time. So this illegal migration which
Scandal.
is coming into the country, into these countries which are destroying their societies, they're destroying their entire being. That, have they kind of realized, and is there going to be a pushback? Because we saw in Germany these guys starting to say anybody who says Hamas this that, we'll throw you out. And we'll not throw you out, we'll throw your entire family out. So
Correct.
Germany kind of calmed down suddenly. What do you think is going to happen here?
Now, I just uh, we're talking about immigrants. Italy received 134,000 migrants. Spain was about 25,000, 26,000. Greece was around 25,000. Bulgaria was around 14,000, and Cyprus about 5,000. And these are just figures of 2022, which have, uh, you know, come about. So when you look at even the small countries like Malta, Malta also got certain immigrants who came in from the sea route. Now, when all this is happening, so much of immigration is happening, the population, as far as Germany is concerned, Germany got 2.67 million immigrants. And out of that is 2.67 came in and 1.2 went out. So a total of 1.46 million was something which is their population has increased. And these are all immigrants. So if you're going to have a year-on-year increase of about 1.5 million, while that is the need of Europe because the population, aging population, we've heard of €1 houses available in Italy.
Yeah.
Greece is offering citizenship. So is Cyprus, and all that. So when such kind of situations are existing, these governments are also coming out. They're getting desperate to get people into their countries, but unfortunately it is not the right kind of people that who are coming in. The
Who are you taking?
immigration, yeah, immigration is not so controlled. I mean, there has to be some criteria. It cannot be just that okay, we accept immigrants from strife driven zones, war zones, right? So you got to have a fundamental mix of kind of people that you want. So there is somewhere the these countries are faltering. What they're
Hmm.
looking at is they're looking at against their votes becoming popular and getting their votes rather than looking at the future of the country. So when you're looking at votes, you forget as to who the person is and what does he bring on the table as far as the country is concerned. So that's where the problem lies. So there's a huge amount of immigration taking place, and all this, the effect of this is what is visible on the streets of Europe today. So for popularity, now where the government is pro-immigrant, I'm going to make a statement. Where the government is pro-immigrant, you have a strong right wing. Okay, where the government is inward looking and nationalist, there you do not have these right wings elements. So any nation which is favoring is pro immigrant, it has a stronger right wing element. So chances of clashes in those countries are much more than those countries which are looking inwards. They are ensuring a balance. The right wing element is less. So that's how it is.
Ah, I mean, it's a dangerous scenario. That's all I'm going to say. They're sitting on a bloody ticking time bomb, and they're not realizing what is happening. And this whole left wing ideology is actually giving air to the entire. Oh, no, no, no! It's your right to protest. You can freedom of speech. Carry any flag that you like, please. We'll print it and give it to you. What's the problem? You want Al Qaeda written there or ISIS? You want it in a black background or white? It's insane, and this is what is actually happening there. And it's. Let's get into some questions, guys. Before I do, request everybody to like this video. I get incensed whenever I talk about this because they're not dealing with someone else's mistakes. They're dealing with their own, and they fail to recognize it. So damn good. Continue. Is give us a good case study of what not to do in life. So for that note, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Most importantly, guys, spread the word about Dev Talks. We're at 113,000. We're supposed to hit 125 minimum, 125, 130 out and out subscribers by the time it's December 31st, and need your help for that. You can contribute towards Dev Talks with the QR code up there. Yeah, you can use PayPal, which is there in the description. And by the way, guys, all these videos, if you're watching them later, will be chapterized as well. Uh, they will be broken into sections. So if you want to rewatch these videos, past couple of videos, chapterization of those videos is already in progress. Thank you so much, all of you. Mandar Kelkar, thank you so much. He says, Sir, Jahin sir, illegal migrants versus far right government in EU nations is going to be interesting tussle, resulting into violent crusades. I think I touched upon it a little bit, but anything else that you'd like to add, sir?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, this is the crux of the whole situation. There's going to be uh, there's going to be violence on the streets, and if not checked, if not controlled, there's going to be a lot of trouble. Arms, as I mentioned, coming in on the fallout of Ukraine war, uh, they are already there on the streets. They've reached as far as Africa. They were found with the Hamas. So there's going to be a lot of problem. There's going to be violence on the streets of Europe. Yeah.
Violence on the streets of Europe. My God. Satish Patelji, thank you so much. He says, ask Adi. I think America wants to get rid of KH, Khotestanis. Okay. Any comments, sir?
Just talking about KHS.
Khotestanis?
Now, America wants to get rid of anybody and everybody who doesn't align with them. That's plain and simple.
No, 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 खालिस्तानी सर, खालिस्तानी अभी
Yeah,
अलाइनमेंट है,
yeah.
थोड़े टाइम के बाद डिसअलाइनमेंट हो जाएगी, तो फिर वो he'll be thrown into the ocean.
No, no,
ठीक,
no.
कोई बात
The yeah, I mean, America's got America is different. And if you got to stay in America to understand America,
नहीं. Sir,
yeah,
this
I
is
don't have
also
much to add on this.
complete George Soros game. The guy
Yeah,
who's written the lawsuit is a pass out of the
yeah,
Open Society Foundation.
you should see that one. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I mean, if you read it, I mean, anybody can make a case against anybody the way they've written it.
है, उसको बोलता है क्या, push these guys harder, push these, अबे समोसे
Yeah.
लेने जा रहा है क्या? जल्दी आओ, मुझे भूख लगी है.
Only I read through the damn thing and I was like, oh my god, this is not the way. This
तो
is not the way. This is not a bloody. It's like a story out of a comic book, yeah. And some bloody thriller that somebody Desmond Bagley wrote. Or I mean, I don't know who wrote it, but
and very badly written that too, sir. I think it's for
very
a
badly
Hollywood
written.
C grade movie.
Correct. Totally. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Good for laughs, but I had good fun
I
covering
swear.
that. It was good for
I
laughs.
swear.
You got to give them that. Geopolitics was a little weak. Here, guys, laugh. There you go.
No, they
Nimish
stretched it
Awasthi
a little
ji.
too far.
Trust me, guys. That's You have to read that. It's there on the internet. 15 pages. It'll take you about 10 minutes. It'll be the best thing that you've read in a long time. ठीक है,
Yeah, some
हँस-हँस के
fiction,
परेशान हो
some good
जाओगे.
fiction, some sasta fiction.
A 10th
Yeah,
class kid will come out and say, यार ये क्या लिखा है इसने? But still,
Pagalband.
Nimish Awasthi ji, thank you so much. He says, even if EU wants, will the US let EU become a security organization on its own?
Yeah. No, that's the whole point. The United States does not want EU to become a security organization, and hence, as I said, they made NATO was becoming irrelevant thanks to Donald Trump. So they try to boost it up. How do they boost it up? They boost it up by creating the war in Ukraine and pushing Ukraine to fight when actually it was coming to terms before the war. That's it. So the United States was losing a hold over Europe, and now it's back again. Unfortunately, that is also waning now as the time goes by.
Mind Waves, nice to see you back after a while. Thank you so much. He says, the silent majority are raising their voices against the woke governments that are influenced by Hollywood woke culture. Now, we've not discussed woke that much, sir. Let's get into that. The funny things that you see is queer, LGBTQ for Palestine. And the joke is that there aren't enough
Yeah,
buildings in Gaza standing to throw them off the roof. So these guys might just survive Gaza.
this is unfortunately this is what is coming to fore, and what is happening in the United States is pretty uh, amusing, and that is what they want to push it. They want to push all that culture onto other soils, and that's sad that it's gaining momentum in across the world. Now, obviously, the silent majority has to come above all this, and say enough is enough, and that's precisely what is happening. And that is where the nationalism coming in. That's where the cultural aspects are coming in, and as I mentioned, the multiculturalism is fine, but not beyond a limit, and that's
Yep.
precisely what the awakening has come about.
Ayan, thank you so much. इंडियन साइबर फोर्स ने पाकिस्तान का जीपीएस हैक कर दिया. उनका सैटेलाइट कनेक्शन हैक कर दिया है.
That's
So
okay. We are good at it. Don't worry.
no, this is this guy on Twitter, huh? So it's a Twitter handle.
Yeah.
And every time India has a issue with someone, this guy go hacks them out completely. I don't know who they are, but they do it. I
No,
mean,
no, no.
and they,
Our guys, these standalone, independent hackers, they do it for the sake of doing it for fun's sake. They're pretty good, huh? And they're pretty young.
yeah,
That's the best part. The very, very young fellows.
I mean, it's amazing. The guy puts out, okay, Qatar, you did this with our soldiers. Here, your Air Force website, your this website, your that website, all are gone. So I clicked on those things. Obviously, they were gone. I said, yeah, okay. This guy's probably corrupted the link. Opened a incognito page, went to the Air Force of Qatar, found the website, went up, hacked. So he was not kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hacked.
No, no. Incident.
Interesting. I
My
don't know.
my
Wonder
outlook
who
my outlook was hacked today.
yeah. So
Ah,
how
good
to stop
question.
Bangla and
Where to stop?
Myanmar migrants? Myanmar is taken care of. Bangladesh has a challenge.
You see, Bangladesh is a major, major challenge. Now, I, if you guys know Assam well, and you know the North Bengal area well, you would realize as to how easy it is to cross over from Bangladesh into India. And unfortunately, for India, Bangladesh overpopulated. A and subsequently it's going to be even more overflows. Yeah, I'll just repeat.
Overpopulated. After that, we
Bangladesh, yeah, so overpopulated, and then the rising seas. Resultant is that the land is becoming scarce as far as Bangladesh
yeah.
is concerned, and then the political conditions in Bangladesh are not very, very right. And then when they look across the fence, there's much more prosperity, there's much more order, there's much more, uh, you know, health being taken care of, and things like that. So opportunities. India, as far as the Bangladeshis are concerned, is a land of opportunities. So if you have been to Karimganj and if you have been to Hailakandi and all those areas, you Kachar and all that, and if you've been to North Bengal, Kuch Bihar and stuff, you realize it's very, very easy to get across. While the BSF is there and it's doing a great job, the touts which are operating along the border, they do find ways and means to push these guys in. That's one. Second, as far as Myanmar is concerned, the Indo-Myanmar border all along, whether it's in Arunachal, come down to Nagaland, come down to Manipur, and go down Mizoram. Well, uh, it's so densely populated. It's so dense, not populated. It's so densely forested that anybody who wants to come across can come through uh, quite safely, hiding through the jungle, cutting across the jungle. So Myanmar is. We have Assam rifles over there. They're the guarding. They're doing a great job again, but the border is very, very porous. So
Today a
difficult
big
tasks.
development happened. No?
And the,
There's a huge mighty-based group that has put down their arms and come into the mainstream. So that's a major development, and which will Manipur is pretty much going to calm down after this, especially you know
I will tell you how it works later on offline. Having
dancer.
having lived my life there and dealt with it and
Oh,
conducted many
fantastic.
such laying down of arms. Yeah. So that we will
Ni-
talk later.
Nimish, thank you so much. King Philip of II of Spain also removed all Muslims again. They didn't remove it. They didn't remove anybody, but
Yeah, the as far as Spain has declared itself, and it's very very categorically declared that we are a Christian nation. We really do not. If you want to be a Muslim, staying in Spain, you don't have to go about flashing your identity. You can be a part. You can be a Spaniard, but follow your faith, but do not interfere in our affairs. So that way, Spain has taken a major step, a broad step, a bold step to declare that they're a Christian state and others are not welcome. And if they got to be, they got to behave as
how we
responsible
are.
Spaniards. Yeah.
Nava Parsamji, thank you so much. He says, what's the possibility of civilizational war in the future?
Well, it's kind of brewing up. When you talk of
It's
a
happening.
civilizational war, uh, I would say terrorism is brewing up, and the terrorism is going to be Muslims trying to terrorize the Christians after all, if they are citizens and they want to be, and if they're going to be a majority in certain countries, they're already becoming majorities. Then there's obviously a fight between two groups, and it's going to be quite problematic. We've
Chaotic.
seen it. We are
Hmm.
seeing it. We are witnessing a civilizational war happening in front of our own eyes, as far as Israel and as far as the Jews and the the Hamas, which is basically Arabs, is taking place, and the protests which are coming about. So there is on ground a kind of a civilizational war, if I may just say so. It's kind of
So,
a, as we discussed, Achit, it's more of a third, one of the segments of the Third World War.
Third World War. Hmm.
Yeah.
Shritik says, why do leftists have one sided love for Islamists? The latter are against everything the former claim to be equal rights for women, empowerment, LGBTQ, free speech, and everything. I'm really perplexed. Take it as a thumb rule. A
You
square
don't have
plus B square is equal to.
to be. So you don't have to be perplexed. It's all about votes. It's all about
Yep,
popularity. That's about it. End of story.
absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing else but that.
Just to stay in power.
Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. SN says nationalist government are winning by promising exiting EU, and EU is trying to avoid the split. Will we see a dilution in EU policies to accommodate exit list nations?
No, you know, EU dilution of policies in EU. EU's got nothing to do with all this. What policies? EU needs to kind of get the nations together on issues other than economics, and that is one. Two, they will have to certainly impose a little bit of checks. I mean, too much of freedom is not good for EU. You I mean, the cultural aspects, as I mentioned many times earlier, are getting diluted. So, culturally, politically, there is dilution. The political hold of a political party on its own nation has reduced.
Hmm.
Economies are in doldrums, and culturally, they are going down. So, EU has to rewrite its policies, but what policies? I mean, there has to be a mindset change.
That is
There
true,
has
sir.
to be and there are countries which are already saying we don't want more countries in EU. We've had enough, because the more countries in EU, the more problems which are going to happen.
Maitri asks, are we experiencing any border changes, law and order system changes in Europe? Who would be uh, who would who would be possible relevant nations that emerge into Europe? Will UK, France be a part of it?
A very big question, a good question. Yes, if you really look at it, I'm just going to put it very bluntly. If border changes don't take place, if the law system, laws in respective countries do not take changes do not take place, there's going to be a problem. And I say this why: every country makes laws according to its people, according to its citizens, according to the uh, aspirations of its citizens. Today, the entire demography has changed or is changing, and the anti-government, or I would not, or ideology or ideological differences are coming to fore. So the laws will have to change. Border changes, open borders are not doing any good as far as EU is concerned. That's my personal opinion. And who would be the possible relevant nations in Europe? Well, we keep talking about Germany, Poland, France. Hungary now is becoming powerful, always was, perhaps, being a, Viktor Orban been there for 4 terms. So these countries, Italy, as far as other countries, minor countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, these are not going to really make much of a
As
difference.
it is city states, sir. I
Yeah.
mean, little
So the
larger than
not,
city states.
yeah, you will have some Nordic countries which will remain relevant.
So Cyberpunk says, I see a world war brewing up similar to World War II.
We've been
Hybrid.
seeing this sort of, yes, we've been talking about it. If you've been following us, we've been talking about it a lot. Definitely.
Ashish has two parts, sir. He says, greetings from Germany. I have many friends from the EU and they don't even have a clue of what is cooking under their nose. They even support asylum. Are we looking at massive deportation drives or multiple two-state solutions?
Yeah. Now, the first one is they didn't know what was brewing under their noses. This is a typical white man syndrome because they really do not know what is happening under the nose. This anybody in the West is so busy in his own affairs that they don't get to see as to notice as to what is happening. We know of neighbors, we don't even know who our neighbor is. I'm sure all those living abroad would realize that. There's
Hmm.
hardly any interaction between two neighbors. I know I knew the one on my left, but I did not know the one on my right who was a Pole, and on my left was a German. Of course, that couple we knew, but the others we really did not know. So that is a kind of a you know society that exists. That's one.
Hmm.
So the other one is massive deportation drives. Easy to say, uh, wanting to do, but not really possible.
So,
That's what it is.
Mandar, thank you so much once again. US State Department becoming US's Justinder. Frequently silly stuff targeted towards Bharat will be thrown towards us, but Modi and Jaishankar hai na. मोदी जयशंकर एंड पूरा देश है ना
Good one,
हाँ,
Mandar.
ठीक है डोंट वरी
So
नथिंग विल हैपन यार
don't worry.
टेंशन हम खड़े
Anybody
हैं
can become anything. हम भी हैं.
अ, अ, हम भी हैं लाइन में है आर वी लुकिंग एट
Hmm.
मैट ओके
No,
दिस सॉरी आई टुक दिस अप
no. I talked about two nation states not happening. I mean, they would love to do it. They would like to, but slowly and slowly, unfortunately, the migrants are becoming more popular. You've seen you've seen a couple of heads of states of Indian origin and Pakistani origin all over Europe.
वो तो सर आजकल हम वोग बन गया है एवरी कंट्री दैट वांट्स टू डू समथिंग गेट एन इंडियन यार करेगा कुछ आके नहीं तो नहीं होता
No, that's what I'm saying. That you have heads. This so what I'm saying is the demographic change has already taken place.
या या
Now,
या
whether you want to reform, while the uh, you know the whites, supremacists may want to trigger such kind of actions as true nationalists. But I think the stage is over. It's too
Yeah,
late.
yeah, yeah. Free thinker. The new right wing leaders are just talk, no action. Meloni has folded completely. Now Argentina is saying things but seems to have no plan. I don't know about Argentina,
I
but
can,
Meloni is playing a smart game.
yeah, but interestingly, what I was reading about this great up now Wilder in Netherlands. No, in Netherlands, what's happened is it's going to be a coalition government,
Yeah.
right? This person just got about, I think, 17% votes now, and he's got to team up with another three or four parties to form a government, or you know, when it comes into place. Now, the other parties are not going to be aligned to his ideas, so he may have to give up a few of his, radical thought processes that is against immigration, zero immigration, then is no Islam, no Quran, banning of Islam, banning of Quran. I mean, these kind of things are not going to be acceptable to any democratic society. So if you're
Hmm.
going to team up, it's not happening. So while the intent may be there with all the leaders when they come into power, but once you come into power, then you are actually made wise on the realities on ground, and then you have to shift gear. So that's what is there. Meloni's, whether it is Meloni or whether it is Wilder, you have to look at the larger interest of the country.
Yeah. Politically, I also think Meloni needs money right now. And the only people that are going to give it to her, it's the European Union. And I don't think she's
That's
going to
right.
get into a big fight with them in the first year of office. She's there for 5 years.
No way.
She will pick up the fight after 2 years because that's when she needs to start rising for the next election. So there's time. Don't underestimate that woman. Huh? I'm telling you, she's a. I've read quite a bit about Italian politics. She's quite a firebrand. Uh, is the world turning more towards the right because left is pushing too many agenda in fast succession? Every topic in the West, especially, has become a battlefield for one ideology versus the other. Very well said.
Actually, yes, because whenever a party comes into power, and whether it is leftist or rightist, they want to push their agenda at the fastest possible pace, and that is where the conflict takes place. I mean, if you do not carry the majority or the minority, I mean, uh, if you do not carry your citizens along with you, there is going to be a lot of divisive politics which will exist, and that's precisely what is happening. Whether it's the right or the left, only thing is the right party today uh, is are coming about because they are against certain issues which are not in their national interest, and that's about it. And they feel that they have the gumption to counter that. That's what it is.
Counter it. Dipankar says, how do you see the Ukrainian war, immigrants in Europe? Isn't Europe directly responsible for it in very recent time? How severely do you think it will cause problems in coming days? It's already causing big problems.
8 million. I mean, if you got them all over,
Yeah.
and they are not going to go back to Ukraine. B, they're already a strain on these nations. C, these people themselves are now they're mostly women, huh, by the way. So if
Yep.
mostly women, they picked up jobs here and there, and are cheap labor, which is available all across Europe. Take a legal recourse, or if you are an illegal guy, please go back. So there are problems growing up, and Ukrainians are not going to come back, and whosoever is at 10-20% which want to get back will, God knows, only come back after reconstruction takes place, and there are opportunities in Ukraine.
So, Harshalji, thank you so much for this. You have posted your question, which we will take. Hello, Major General. Sir, where do you see the Russia Ukraine war going to in the next 3 to 6 months?
Nothing happening in the next 3 months. It's more a war of words. We've heard yesterday Avdiivka was taken over by the Russians. That's what they've claimed,
Yeah.
and the Russians are making slow progress. The Ukrainians are making no progress, and the Russian president has already said that we
Yeah.
will not stop the war, and there's no question of a ceasefire till such time the elections in the United States are held. That is 2024. So, in my opinion, we're looking at the war getting prolonged. There have been massive attacks today by the Russians on the Ukrainians. I think one of the major um, drone attacks which took place. So all this will continue. Non-contact warfare will continue. Contact warfare will kind of come to a near standstill because of the winters and the snow setting in. And then after that, the thawing of the snow makes mobility very difficult. So next 3 to 6 months, I think it's, if I may say, more of a stalemate, as
Hmm.
was stated by Budanov, not by Budanov, by the chief, that is Zaluzny. So there is more of a stalemate in favor of Russia, if I may just put it.
So Batraji says, the second last one, sir. Last question. General sir, though we are seeing a right wing government, but Nazism, will it ever return in your view? We almost see it returning in Ukraine.
Actually, it's existing. Actually, if you even if you look at
You,
Germany, if you guys have been to Germany, you will find this white supremacists all supporting Nazism, and they're a very very strong force
the
existing in
AfD,
Germany. Yeah,
AfD,
and
Alternative
I
for Deutschland.
I've had a nice experience over there in Frankfurt, so I do understand that. And then, of course, in Ukraine, we have seen what has been happening. So there is a return of Nazism. It's not going away, and that's what Russia wants to weed out of Ukraine.
So,
But then, unfortunately, it exists.
G, thank you so much for your contribution. And that brings us to the end of the show, sir. I think this is a very, very nice discussion, sir, because we've had a very realistic sort of a thing. We've taken through a very, you know, interesting term of events which are taking place around Europe and especially around the world. So thank you so much for that, sir. And always looking forward for hearing your views. Till next time, sir. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you. Thank you very much.